Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. "52 Authors, 52 Weeks." And today you are in for a treat because I am joined by Dr. Sarah Jefferies, who the first time I met her, I found that she has such a very infectious spirit. If you're looking at her right now with her smile and the radiance that she exhibits, you could just tell what type of person that she is. So I am so honored to be here with you today to not only talk about your book, What Enters the Mouth, but also I want our listening, viewing audience to learn more about you, who you serve. So let's first start off by just talking about Dr. Sarah, the person.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it. It's a lovely opportunity. I am a writer, a poet, an editor, a yin yoga teacher, a TEDx speaker, a mama of two amazing children. And I'm just so grateful to be here. And I really believe that writing is the thing that will put us back together again. I really believe that writing is medicine. I'm CEO of my own company. It's called Right Now. The vision is that we can encourage individuals really globally to take a few minutes every day or every other day to write themselves back together again, to write themselves closer to spirit, closer to consciousness, closer to the divine.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? I used to think that writing was just for business.
Mm.
And then I realized how therapeutic writing is. So I
Mhm.
have several of these where
Mhm.
in the morning I wake up and just write how I'm feeling.
Mhm.
But I also, in the evening, I write down, what did I accomplish today? What do I want to accomplish? It's where I write my affirmations. It's where I write my fears.
Mhm.
And I think seeing it is powerful because then I'm no longer afraid of them. And then I
Mhm.
put the wheels in motion to attack them instead of allowing them to attack me.
Mhm.
And I actually started doing this because I was having trouble sleeping.
Mhm.
And it was because all this stuff was floating around in this big head. And I was like,
Mhm.
you've got to dump it out. But then when I realized how powerful it was, it actually became, I have to be honest, a little addictive. I have to cut myself off because I'll just be in there just writing, writing, writing. And sometimes I'll shed a tear.
Mhm.
I'll smile. I go through this whole gamut of emotions, but
Mhm.
it's so therapeutic. And my favorite part, it's free to write a book. It is free.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I recently in California started the practice of writing 3 things at the end of the night that I did well. And I put them in the phrase of like, good job, Sarah, you did. And it might be like, good job, Sarah, you made a beautiful meal. Good job, Sarah. You responded peacefully back to that email. Good job, Sarah. You took a 30-minute walk. Because in the past, I have written down all the things that I needed to do at the end of the night. And that was the wrong time of day to do that, right? Because then I would be wanting to do them in that moment, in that like restful, I'm not yet asleep moment. So there are many writing prompts and many times of day that each prompt can help us rest, help us release, help us love, help us realize, and help us feel. You know, writing is that time when we don't have to mask. That just occurred to me as that came out of my mouth. I was like, wait a minute, writing is the time where authenticity can be practiced, created, a habit. So that when we're in the world, the authenticity that we got through on the page can exist in other places.
I love it. I love it. And I truly believe in being my authentic self because I think it's too difficult to try to be all these different folks.
Yeah.
And because it's like, okay, who am I showing up as today? Whereas when you are walking in your authenticity, you just show up as you.
Yeah.
And when you peel back the layers and take the mask off, that inner beauty can flow. That's where you have this glow that comes from inside out. And that's where the magic happens.
Authenticity is bright. Authenticity grows and continues to blossom, I think. You know, it is, it is the thing we can practice on the page so that we can repeat in life.
I love it.
But it is also the place of beauty. That's what I hear you saying.
It is. It is. And when others see you walking in your authentic self, they don't even know, they don't have to know you to learn about you. I've been told so many times, every time I see you, you're smiling. Even if we never have a conversation, they're like, you're smiling. Well,
Yeah.
and I tell them all the time, it's because there was a time in my life where I lost my voice. And in the midst of losing my voice, I lost that inner sunshine that I had. And once I got it back, I wasn't letting go of it. It's here to stay.
And for me, that smile comes from being in a place of gratitude, and not just gratitude for, you know, the roof over my head, which, you know, as a solo mama in California, very grateful for, or food in the fridge, but gratitude for it all, right? Like gratitude for the antibiotics that helped my kid who had bronchitis, and gratitude for the sorrow, and gratitude for the deep awareness of feeling, right? I think it's really easy to be grateful and joyful for all the wonderful things. And it's much harder to be in a place of gratitude for the harder feelings. You know?
Wow.
But even the harder feelings are here to teach us.
You're gonna make me tear up because I think about waiting 7 years for my daughter to walk. And I think about how I was told she wasn't going to walk. And so there's power in me experiencing that 7-year journey with her, because it not only taught me the power of patience, but it also taught me the power of having a positive mindset, the power of gratitude, even though, you know, it didn't look like it was going to happen. I kept believing that she was going to walk, and she did. And so it's so powerful because it taught me the power of waiting. You know, we all oftentimes rush into things when we're not ready, but waiting that 7 years meant so much to me. I'll never forget it as long as I live on this earth, because it's powerful.
That reminds me of a Rumi quote, who's a, you know, another amazing poet, and he said, "The longer we are in the stillness, the more that we can hear." And so I was thinking about that when you said the waiting space is often the place for me of stillness, which is related, of course, to the yoga that I teach. I'm not, there's all different kinds of yoga, and yoga, I think, needs to be more accessible for every single body, size, shape, age, able-bodiedness, not able-bodiedness. I teach yin yoga, which is a very quiet, lay on the floor with lots of pillows, deep stretch kind of yoga. There's fast yoga and there's Buddha yoga and there's vinyasa yoga and there's all different kinds. I like the kind that we start first in meditation or prayer, and then follow the breath to be in stillness. Stillness for me is also the place where I'm able to write poems. It's the place where I was able to do what enters the mouth. The world moves really fast.
It does. And you have to take those moments for you for silence.
Yes.
And I actually have a place that I go to in the house now for my silence moments, but it's the place where I experience silence. It's also the place where I'm writing. It's not a place where I'm working.
No.
It's only a place where I'm going to this deep place where number one, I have visions in this place, right? I'm sitting there and I just kind of zone out and I see myself on a stage. I see myself as a commencement speaker for a graduation. And if I didn't take the time to be silent and experience it, I'd be missing out, and I don't want to miss out. So tell us about why you started to pen What Enters the Mouth.
Originally, I wanted to call it What Enters the Mouth Will Not Destroy You, because that's from the Gospels. And the publisher was like, that's too long. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking about all the ways that women walk through the world and have been told to be quiet, or obsess about what we put in our mouths, or obsess about our mouths or our lipstick or our face. And I was thinking about the idea that what we take in can build us up or destroy us. And even if there have been moments of assault and sorrow, we still have our own responsibility to heal. So I didn't sit down and think, I want to write about responsibility. I thought, I want to write about different moments when I had agency for what I put in my mouth, moments when I didn't have agency, moments when I knew of stories of women who had survived atrocities and still walked in the world. We are fierce as women. We are fierce and powerful. And I wanted to show some of that agency and power. I also wanted to write about moments in which time travel occurred, moments in which we were present in a space, and yet we were also pulled back at the same time, and then still able to rise.
I love it.
I'm happy to read one of those if you like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we got on to record, I told you that even though this is at the beginning, the first thing, because of course I am analytical, so I'm like, what enters the mouth? And then the very first thing that I saw was about the dentist. And for me, just having spent 3 years in braces, the dentist and his team was entering my mouth every 3 weeks. And to some extent, I'm not going to say I was traumatized by braces, but I have to be honest, I don't like going to the dentist, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So historically, I would go 4 times a year for a cleaning because I don't like to floss either. But just the process was a little traumatic, to the extent that my husband said, I just watched you get braces. I'm not getting braces. all from my experience.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
traumatized.
yeah, yeah. Because there's someone so close to your face with a lot of tools.
A lot of tools, and sometimes they hurt.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm reminded of my special needs daughter who is now 32,
Uh,
who she was being fed with a spoon, and someone was trying to force her to eat, and they hit the spoon up against her teeth, and so now she does not like for it, even at 32, does not like for anyone to get near her mouth.
yeah. And our bodies remember, right? There's an amazing book called The Body Holds the Score. Our bodies remember. The dentist poem is a bit about that memory. And I'm happy to read it if you want.
Well, I want you to read the one that's your favorite. The dentist was just one that was for Lisa was like, whoa, whoa, how am I feeling? Now on the other side of it, I'm like, hey. Because I have this different smile, but it still was an experience. But I had mentioned to you, oh, there's so many. But what's your favorite one? And I'll tell you one of my other favorite ones, the pediatric floor, for a
Oh, the
variety of
pediatric
reasons.
floor,
But
yes. Um, Gosh, my favorite. This is my second book. The first one was called Forgetting the Salt, which was about growing up in Virginia and what it was like to be in such a strange historic town. I grew up in Colonial Williamsburg. Everyone was pretending it was, British times. It was very strange. And I grew up incredibly poor, and my mom did the best she could. She worked at a gas station and wrote obits. Um, but there was a lot of struggles, right? And so that's the first book. And then this, of course, is more about women who can survive. The third book is already finished. I'm just waiting for the publisher to get it. And that is called Lucky to Have You. And that's more love poems and divorce poems. And it's a little bit wilder. But I'll read The Dentist if that works. And then I can read The Pediatric Floor.
okay,
Does that work for you?
it does. And I have a question for you after that, after you finish.
Yes. So the first thing I want to say about The Dentist, just a gentle trigger warning. It is a poem that deals with a moment of assault. So for your listeners, it's not a poem that I would put in front of younger audiences. It is also a poem about memory. The Dentist. What is it about the needle, the padding in the mouth, the wild, untamed tongue, the metallic smell of cement, the tar, the drill, the masked woman demanding breath, the chills, the vacuum sucker, the bite down here, a little more, a little longer, that turns me to a yellow sky afternoon where my brothers bound my pudgy arms to wooden posts, cranked my mouth open, and collected $1 from every neighborhood boy who would jam himself down to my tonsils, how they begged me to swallow, how my brothers gave me a burn every time I bit. How short is the line from jaw to pelvis. How even now I am in the chair and on the ground watching.
Oh my gosh. So let me just tell you, me reading this silently to myself and then hearing you actually read it aloud had an impact on me. Because when I read it, I was not focused on this story. I was focused on my own story.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
now that I am internalizing the story from the actual page here, um, all I can say is wow.
Yeah,
And it's so many things that are coming to mind about this story that shows how powerful words are.
yeah. When we're in the dentist chair, we are laying back, which for me is a place of vulnerability. And had the memories and then I put them together and then I wrote the poem. And now when I go to the dentist, I say, just tell me before you put the chair back. And if I need to sit up, I'm going to be like, whoa, pause. Let me sit up for a second.
Mm. And you know what's so powerful about that? Someone who's not um, attentive, they would associate that with you be doing something that has nothing to do with what they think it's about.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
about a situation that happened
Mm-hmm.
that traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
left you in a traumatic place. And every time you go back to that place, you're reminded,
Right.
but you've learned how to um, navigate through the dental experience,
Mm-hmm.
but you just let them know, hey, let me know when you want to do XYZ so that you're driving that process because let me know so then you're prepared to lay
Mm-hmm.
back. Let me know when you're gonna put that thing in to suck out the liquid, right? Let me
Right.
know so that I'm aware and can maintain
Mm-hmm.
myself so that you can
Mm-hmm.
get done what you need to get done.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's true for a lot of survivors because we carry the memory in our body. We don't necessarily know when the memory is going to arrive, right? And as you know, a teenager and a young adult, I was trying to figure out, why do I hate the dentist? Why do I avoid the dentist? Why do I throw up after the dentist? Why do I need to lay down, right? And then I was like, wait a minute, right? There is a moment of that intense vulnerability and fear that arrives. And so through a lot of therapy and finding my voice, as you said, there are moments where I begin to navigate it.
Wow. I just realized that even though I'm not a poet, I have a poem that I probably need to pencil out today
Yes.
because, and I'm going to send it to you
Oh, I would love that.
because it is a memory that of a situation that I experienced that I just started talking about, believe it or not, when I wrote my book. I had
Yeah.
not disclosed it to anyone. The
Yeah.
only people that knew were the people that were in my life.
Mhm.
And once I started to verbalize it, it set me free. But I believe it needs to be in another format.
Mhm. I can't wait to see that. And you know, when you were talking, I was thinking about how unprocessed memory gets in the way of our communication. Like I'm carrying memories, you're carrying memories, we meet people, they're carrying memories, and then we try to have a conversation. There's miscommunication. Someone's like, did they mean that? Did they say this? And we make things mean things based on a memory that we're having while we're having the conversation, you
Mm-hmm.
know? That's why I think writing really helps us sort through those memories so that they don't um, interrupt us all the time, so that we can hear, like, so that we can hear each other versus hearing the memory.
Mm-hmm.
You had asked me to read the pediatric floor. So the thing I want to say about that poem is that I'm so grateful to have had have two beautiful children. One is in high school, one is in college. Um, the second birth, I had pancreatitis, and I got very, very sick a couple of days after my youngest daughter was born. And this is a poem about that. The first time my oldest, Isla, had jaundice. And so she came out like yellow as yellow as yellow. And they scared me. And yeah, I spent a lot of time on the labor and delivery floor in New York. Um, so much so that I could write thank you. And I have thank you cards to the nurses who hung out with me for a while. The pediatric floor. One, my first 3 days old and yellow as squash left on the neighbor's doorstep. I cannot leave her outside for lack of February light at her birth. Inside, needles and IVs and little felt sunglasses to protect the bulb from burning her. The incubator box she lay in, thick plastic with a thermometer, 2 tunnels for my hands like lost rabbits. She beats the plastic walls with her fists, wails, yanks the sunglasses off, stares as if I have already betrayed her. 2, the second time, second child, same floor, here after 3 days of groaning and Pitocin. This is not her fire, merely my own postpartum stomach beating the walls. My pancreas dried, squished, pleated. No stones. Labor the reason. Same nurses who replaced the felt glasses years ago on her sister slip oxygen in my nose and Dilaudid in me every 3 hours. Engorged, I pour milk, thick with fear, down the drain. My poisoned body trips.
Oh my gosh, you have such a way with words.
Thank you.
I mean, every word you spoke, I felt it.
Mm.
Every single word.
You know, Pitocin is something we give women in labor all the time. And after this, I read a bunch of studies, and it's something like 75% of women who have Pitocin for more than 24 hours have some kind of gallbladder, pancreas, postpartum thing, right? Pitocin, while important, is a drug that helps speed up labor. When we give it to women who are over 200 pounds, mostly in the studies, it impacts their stomach, their gallbladder, their pancreas. My babies were big. Her feet were like way up here. I had huge children. I was like, am I birthing a toddler? Like, what is happening right now? But the Pitocin in both of them made me very sick. And I started thinking about maternity policies and how we help women in labor and what it was like to be postpartum back in the hospital and not be able to breastfeed, right? Have so much medicine in me to calm my system down that I had to pour breast milk that was poisoned from the drugs because the baby couldn't have the drugs in the sink. And I remember thinking, breast milk is gold. I remember thinking breast milk is powerful. And here I am in this hospital trying to survive and heal myself. It's 2024 and labor is still difficult for women. It is still a race. It is still exhausting.
Wow.
you
Wow.
know and both children are good. They're healthy
You're
now.
healthy, right?
Yeah, and I survived. I had my gallbladder removed, which now I think, I'm not sure that I needed that. I think it was some side effects of 3 days of Pitocin. That's a pretty serious medicine.
Mhm, mhm. So tell us about the mat to pen.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, in my moments of silence, I am in yoga, or in my moments of silence and meditation, I am in writing. What I noticed is that I'm so grateful that I work with clients one-on-one, and they would be writing a memoir or a poem, and they would feel kind of stuck. And I would say, hey, do you have a mat? And they were like, what are you talking about? And I knew from my research and my neuroscience understanding and the body knows the score text and my trauma-informed work that if we did a forward fold, if we did a side bend, if we did a particular stretch on the floor, they could breathe more. And if we could breathe more, we could write more. I also noticed that when I was in yoga, or when my friends were in yoga, we would leave the class and we would feel like, oh, everything feels so good. And we'd want to write. We'd have like 20 ideas. So what I noticed was the place on the mat opened up a space for us to write when we were in a writing block, and the place on the mat opened up the imagination. And if I'm writing and I want to think about how to move through something that's harder, I have to feel it in my body. And so I created this thing called Mat to Pen, and it's a beautiful writing yoga workshop. It's had tremendous success. I did it in New York. I've done it in California. It is a 90-minute workshop, and I tailor it to the audience. So one of my first audiences was vets at Cornell who had to tell their patients that their animal was dying. And so we did writing prompts about how to have really hard conversations. And then all of the stretches were here. We did neck things, we did yoga things, we did all these things that opened up the heart space so that we could be compassionate as vets. I've done Mat to Pen with sexual assault survivors. All of the writing prompts were about releasing sorrow, releasing anger, and they were all hip exercises. We were on the floor with hips and legs. I've done Mat to Pen with leaders where we talk about how to have a difficult conversation and keep everyone's dignity intact. So the writing part serves as a practice to have a hard conversation, to release a memory, to honor a loved one. And the yoga movements, whether we're standing up or down, or whether we're moving forward or back, are all connected to the prompts and the memories I think we need to release. Chinese medicine says we hold anger on the side of our body, like right here, we hold grief. So when I've done grief workshops, we're doing everything right here, right? This is where, of course, we have our voice. If they're, women-oriented workshops or voice-focused workshops, we're doing everything here. We're doing neck, we're doing this, those kinds of things. I've worked with writers and we spend the whole time with wrists and arms, right? Because all we're doing is this. So it's yoga to move this. So it's a workshop. I love it. I'm happy to do it for your community if anyone's listening and is like, I need someone to come in and help our team be able to write stronger, help our team work better together, or help our nonprofit feel a little more joy and a little less grief.
Wow. I was thinking about some of the work that I aspire to do with the Chicago public school system, because a lot of the kids experience so much trauma.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to be youthful, right? They lose their innocence so early in life. And I was just visualizing this in a public school system, an underserved public school system, where they can go from mat to pen and write about all the things that they're feeling, and you're able to help them work through it. It's not going to be a one mat to pen experience, right? It needs to be something that's ongoing. But I could see that being the turning point in turning around a community, because what does the future hold if we can't get our kids back on track? I'm 51 and I think about my childhood. These kids, their childhood is different.
That's a fantastic idea, and I hadn't thought of that. And I think the stillness and the meditation of 30 seconds or a minute, all of that shows that children who are struggling with focus would benefit from. And the idea that you can do something physical and then write, and physical and then write, would release the anxiety that so many people have about writing. When I work with people, I give them writing prompts, their sentences, their questions, their reflections. So the page doesn't seem so terrifying, you know? I was thinking about a joyful poem that we could move towards.
Yes.
If that's okay with you. I wanted to just make sure we were okay with time.
Oh, I'm loving this because there's so
Okay.
many things that are crossing my mind, that I'm ready to spread the word about the
Thank you.
power of the mat to pen.
You know, Matt to Penn uh, came to me in that mastermind that we were in that community, in the dream room, when I was thinking about the name of it that came. How is it possible to have yoga be accessible for lots of different bodies and sizes and ages and races and ethnicities? And how is it possible for those of us who have anxiety about writing to be able to move into it?
Mhm. And
It is,
oh, go ahead, go
oh,
ahead.
I was just going to say, it is not easy to be embodied. It is easier to be in our heads.
It is. And I want you to know something that I've never shared with you because we've only seen each other a couple of times.
Mm.
But when I first met you, November 2022,
Okay, I was like,
uh, when I heard you mention that you did yoga, you inspired me as a larger woman to try yoga.
what?
Because I always had associated yoga with a thin housewife woman who, and that wasn't me, right?
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
once I met you,
Oh.
I tried a yoga class. In fact, as I was sitting here thinking about you talking about the mat to pen, I'm going to move my mat from where it's at in my exercise room to where I experience my silence and my journaling. And I am going to incorporate laying down first. Now, let me just tell you, I am by far an expert in anything yoga, but I do know how to lay down and breathe and stretch. And I believe that this conversation happened when I needed it, but it's also going to help so many other people who are struggling,
Mhm.
who didn't know what to do, was afraid to try different things. You know, there's the stigma associated with therapy, but something simple as laying down on the mat and allowing yourself to have that moment and then just get up and start to write, or get on your stomach and have your journal there and
With
start to
you.
write.
Yeah.
And for me, I already know it's going to be writing, reflecting, but it's also going to be some crying
Mhm.
because I firmly believe in letting go of the things that are holding me back. And I
Yes.
do that via tears.
Yes. Yes. I completely agree. And I'm so glad that we met. When you said 2022, I was like, wait, was it that year? I couldn't even remember. The 2021, 2022 all blurs a little bit for me. They there is this stigma around yoga that it's important to be a size 8 and super flexible, as if we had to be good at something before we began it. As if the first yoga class I ever took, I could not touch my toes. And I had a teacher bring blocks over and put them in front of my hands and say, now bend your knees. And so the floor came to me and I could do a forward fold. There are blocks and blankets to put around us to ease the process of relaxing, you know? And I'm so excited that you had tried a yoga class. There are many different ones. Yin is the one that I do the most. I was looking for a joyful poem, um, in this particular book, or one that was, uh,
Not so deep, because I know some of our listening, viewing audience is like, whoa, this is deep. But
yeah.
honestly, you need to experience some moments of where things are deep because you
Mhm.
realize that you're in a deep place and you
Yes,
need some assistance with pulling yourself out.
yes. Um, let's see. Let's try this one. I don't know how many of your listeners are divorced.
Mm.
I love, I love, really, if you don't know. And I love marriage. I would totally get married again. I love the idea that we can be committed in a union. I love the idea of a supporting husband. Um, I love the idea of the way we can move together through the world. And I was married before, and I got divorced, and I thought that was the end.
Mm.
Um, and then I, started thinking about all the ways that divorce taught me something. And so that's this one, if that's all right with you.
It is.
What divorce taught me: people will not behave the way you want them to, including children, especially mine. Invisibility is a gateway to purgatory. Sorrow is a choice. Thoughts are funhouse mirrors. They invent and destroy illusions. Not everyone loves to see what words can do and what they have to do. Some people don't see words. Bees singing in your brain will turn to ash. Light the match every day. Be both open and closed at the same time. Don't choose. Look stupid when you act out of vulnerability. Forget how to court ugly. Beauty is a weapon you can now sharpen. Be the granddaughter of the witches who couldn't be burned. Wanderlust courses through your veins. Do not settle down. Gather up all of the selves you left behind. Each and every one laughs.
Gather up the selves that you left behind.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times in relationships, employmentships, situationships,
Hey.
we think we gotta leave those selves behind, but there's some
Yes.
power in those selves that we
Yes.
just allowed up. We got lost.
Yes.
But once you find your way, bring the selves with you.
Yes. We are, I believe, the self we are now and the selves we were before. And I don't know about you, but I find it much easier to accept the joyous selves and the selves that, like, the self that worked really hard to get a PhD, and the self that got an MFA, and the self that survived labor, the self that struggles, the self that doesn't like herself so much. That's a harder self to love. And so when I said gather up all the selves, I mean the ones who have triumphed on the TEDx stage, the ones who have written poems, and the ones who want to stay in bed because they're afraid.
Mm. Wait till I send you my poem for myself,
I
the
can't
self, one
wait.
of myselfs.
Yes,
Wait, just wait.
I can't wait.
So tell our listening, viewing audience how they can find you. You're in California. I'm in Chicago. So we're on the other side of the world from each
Yes,
other, but have been
yes,
able to connect to help others grow.
yes. So you can find me at www.sarahjeffress.com. My IG is Dr. Jeffress Right Now. The name of the business is called Right Now, WRIT.now. The reason I called it that is because I believe that we all have moments to write, that now is what we have. And for me, I believe that it is much more difficult and much more powerful to stay in the present moment rather than spend every single day in yesterday or so deeply worried about the future. So I didn't call the business Right Future or Right Yesterday. I literally mean right now, as in this moment, we could all be writing.
I love it.
And so you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's all Dr. Jeffress Right Now. And it's Sarah at sarahjeffress.com. I'm happy to work with individuals who are wanting to expand their sentences into paragraphs and the paragraphs into pages while they find their voices and learn to trust the writing process and save time. I'm, happy to work with poets and novelists and memoirists, artists, servant leaders, public speakers, people who have half of a book in a drawer or their computer that they want to finish, and they suddenly realized we're almost in June, we're almost at the half quarter point of 2024, and they haven't finished that book. I'm often called the book doula. I'm also happy to do mat to pen writing workshops. One of the things I forgot to say about that is that yoga actually decreases blood pressure, and it releases patterns of stress, and it increases our longevity. So there are health benefits to stretching on the floor. And people who do mat to pen with me leave knowing how to have more difficult conversations while keeping everyone's dignity on board. And I'm interested in individuals who have never done yoga before, individuals who might begin to want to strengthen their relationship between their mental health and their physical health, individuals who are ready to connect their mind and bodies. I also do keynotes. I talk a lot about writing practices, writing strategies, and writing as a way to heal ourselves back together again.
I love it. Well, listen, it has been such an honor to chat with you today.
Thank you.
Everyone, please get your copy of What Enters the Mouth. My husband is like, how many books are you going to buy? And I have not said to him, but what he doesn't realize is that there was a book that helped me navigate life with him
Yes.
and navigate life as a woman, a wife, a mother, a friend,
Wait,
a
what was it
coach, a
called?
speaker. Oh, it's so many books.
Okay, I
So
need
many
them.
books. But to be honest, one of them was about emotional intelligence because you need emotional intelligence in any relationship that you're in. One of the tenets is your relationship management. And I realized as a very strong, vocal woman who got married later in life that I needed to do a better job of being my own emotional boss, but I also needed to recognize when to pull back when I'm trying to have a conversation with him, but also recognize when I'm not pulling back. Just like, for example, earlier today, he was complaining about some tingling in his feet that he had been complaining about for a long time. So I called the doctor up. I'm like, hey, we need to have an appointment, right? So I go to his area where he's outside smoking his cigar, and I'm like, you're going to the doctor today, right? So through reading, I've learned how I've been given the tools to deal with situations, and I can pull the tools out when I need them. And when I don't need them, I put them back on my tool belt until it's time for me to pull them out. And I learned all of that from reading books.
Yeah, I love that so much. Would it be okay to offer two stretches to help? I don't know how your husband feels about stretching, but one, if sometimes when we have tingling in our feet, it's because our calves are tight. So I don't know if you massage his calves or he massages his calves, but the back of the calf is related to the tingling foot. And then the second is if have you ever put your legs up the wall?
I was just thinking about that. I might have, but it's not PG.
Yeah, there's that. There's that. That's so funny. I didn't even think of that. I I actually mean separately, together. If you put in yoga at the end, if you put your bum really close to the wall and you put your feet on the wall this way, you can bend your legs or have them this as a V, but you can also have them this way. And if he flexed and pointed his feet, if these were his feet, you could do it like next to him, flexed and pointed his feet. Tingling also sometimes is around circulation. So it's about moving the blood back, if this was his foot, back to his calf. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's,
I think he's gonna like the rubbing of the calves the best.
yes,
I'm thinking
they
he's gonna
usually
like
do.
that. Well, I want to thank you so much
Thank
again
you.
for sharing your expertise, sharing a couple of poems from your book. I love to have a variety of books, short, long, but now I'm into seeing what poets have written about, because that was an area I had not explored as much.
Yes.
But now it's going to be on my bookshelf because I see the value in these short, impactful passages.
Mhm.
And, you know, sometimes you need something short
Mhm.
to give you some food for thought.
Mhm.
So I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everyone. This has been another amazing episode, 52 Authors, 52 Weeks. I just finished chatting with Dr. Sarah Jefferies of What Enters the Mouth. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.